Hi, I'm Vineet Malhotra and you're watching NewsX A-List, where we bring to you some of the finest and reputed professionals in our country. We put together yet another unmissable lineup of India's finest and brightest. In this panel, we are joined by Aswini Bajaj, the CEO of Leveraged Growth, who boasts not one but 13 educational degrees. We are also joined by Varun Satia, the founder and CEO of Craftshala, India's largest marketing jobs providing edtech platform. Last but not the least, we have Dr. Alok Sharma joining us, who is the director of Neurogen Brain and Spine Institute, Navigator, Mumbai. Let's cut across.
Transforming education sector.
Craftshala exists to build India's largest higher education institution committed to job creation.
Cutting edge training tools.
And we're basically trying to make education very practical and practitioner driven.
NewsX India A-List proudly recognizes Varun Satia, CEO of Craftshala. Hello and welcome. You're watching NewsX A-List, where we bring to you some of the finest and brightest minds of the country. I'm Asawari Jindal, and joining us today is Varun Satia, the dynamic founder and CEO of Craftshala, India's largest marketing jobs providing edtech platform. Varun brings over a decade of experience in marketing, training and entrepreneurship. In 2017, Varun co-founded Craftshala with a mission to transform India's education system. He believes in a practical, job-oriented approach to learning, which has driven Craftshala's success. The platform now boasts a community of over 2 lakh members, a 95% advocacy score and a 94% placement rate. Varun has also mentored many industry leaders and conducted numerous sessions at top B schools like IIM's, ISB and Xavier School of Management. Varun, it's lovely having you with us on the broadcast. I'd like to start by asking you, can you tell us the story behind Craftshala? What specific gaps in the education sector are you aiming to fill?
Thank you very much for having me here. Essentially, Craftshala exists to build India's largest higher education institution committed to job creation. So we want to be the largest job creator in India. To be honest, that's not how we started. So when we started, we were actually training students of elite business schools like IIMs and ISB and so on and so forth. And we were basically trying to make education very practical and practitioner driven. And as we expanded our programs from students of those B schools to other B schools, we kind of realized that that something had materially shifted in the ecosystem. You see, students of these elite B schools are going to get fantastic jobs, whether they were taking a program from us or not. But as we expanded our programs to other students, we kind of figured that the kind of jobs that were coming to those B schools were not really very aspirational. They were not making the students very happy. And there was always that lack of job security, which drove their decision making as well. And so we kind of narrowed on this insight that the primary goal of any higher education institution is to make sure that its graduates are getting a fantastic job. That means a job in a good brand, paying a decent salary, and gives them very good growth prospects. So that's why in 2020, we kind of transitioned from doing lots of different programs to doing one kind of programs. These became longer, full immersion programs that came with a job tangibility. And today, we're quite happy to sort of have placement accountability pledge for each of our programs, which means that if our students don't hit a placement level above a certain salary, most of their fee gets refunded. That's how we built this one.
Absolutely, that sounds very interesting. Now, I'd also like to understand from you what sets Craftshala apart from traditional education institutions and other edtech platforms.
I think primarily our goal from day one has been to make sure our students can deliver on the job from day one. Now, the reason students are struggling to do that is because they haven't solved the kind of problems that they're going to get into the industry. So what that leads to is a long gestation period where students are in internships, then they are in very basic jobs, and then sometimes they never make the cut. We tried and cut all of that nonsense and said that whatever you're going to be doing on the first day of your job, let's make sure that you're prepared for that in the program. So these are very practical programs. We get them designed from some of the best leaders in the industry. The students are solving projects that they would be solving in the industry. As the technology changes in the jobs, so the technology that we're teaching these students also changes, right? So for example, ChatGPT was not really a factor 12 to 18 months ago. Today, it's a large part of every facet of our program. So they're very connected to the jobs that the students are going to be doing in. And obviously, it's like you graduate from a college and you go and do a job, and they say, well, you learned it in theory, can you now just do it, right? But if I change that context and say, well, you haven't been swimming before, here's a book on swimming, now just go in and participate in a swimming competition. You're obviously going to struggle. But if you have actually done a little bit of swimming for a few days, you've practiced it, you've had some coaches give you that feedback, then obviously you'll do a better job. So these programs are very much trying to make sure that whatever problems you're going to face in the job, let's just make sure that you face them here itself.
Right, absolutely. Now, what were the challenges you faced while starting Craftshala, and how did you overcome them?
One of the biggest things in the Indian mindset is that good higher education means a government institution. So our best, most celebrated institutions are IITs and IIMs. These are government institutions, right? And very few people understand that that's not the case globally. So a Harvard or a Stanford are not government institutions. These are privately held organizations. So that aspect of private education being trusted in India, that didn't exist. And that's something that we had to solve from day one. It's something that we continue to have to solve today as well. So building that trust in students as well as in recruiters, that we are really trying to build an educational institution committed to outcomes. And as we scale with soul, which means that the outcomes we are giving today are going to be equal or better than the outcomes we provided 6 months ago. And that story is going to continue. I think that's always been our challenge. And we've done a few things to sort of build that trust in. But I think the biggest driver of our success is our students and the stories that they have shared with their community. I think that those stories speak much louder than what anything that we have done in order to sort of get that trust out.
Right, absolutely. So I would actually like to elaborate on it a little further. If you could share some success stories of students that have been the most satisfying for you and Craftshala.
We had a student from I think he's from Kota, Rajasthan, named Abhishek, who, when he got placed, so he got placed a few months ago in a company called Nestle, and with a salary package of about 17.5 lakh rupees. This person, he had a couple of failures in his life. He had done an undergrad, he had done a postgrad, he had run a cafe. And then after that, he came into this program and sort of grew in a way that, he was unrecognizable even to us when he graduated. And when he cracked that role, he came in later and he shared this story with all of us, that the day he got that job offer was the first time in his life that he had hugged his father. And I think that relationship between students and parents, and that transition that kids have, in our teenage years, we're very rebellious. But as we get into our early 20s, we start to appreciate our parents a little bit more. We always love them, but we appreciate them a little bit more, and we have the capacity to truly tell them how much we care for them. I think that really stands out. I'll take another story, we had a student, Jay, family income of maybe 2 lakh rupees a year, right? That's the family income. Lands a job, goes to his mother and says, you don't have to carry the burden of running this household alone. I can support you there. And I think that for us, just that delight, that confidence that students get once they know that they have a stable source of income in a great brand, working in a Nestle or a Google, and that their career is set, that's everything.
Right, that sounds wonderful. Now, how do you ensure that your courses stay relevant and deliver tangible career outcomes for students?
Yeah, I think that's really at the heart of the Craftshala experience. I think the first thing I'll say there is that our courses are not designed by people who learned it off a book. So to design a Craftshala course, you need to be amazing at your job for over a decade or more. So all of these programs are really designed by people in the industry. The second thing is, a lot of these courses online typically tend to be through recorded lectures. For us, recorded is a very small aspect of training. The real magic happens in when students do projects, which I spoke about earlier, but when they get feedback from industry experts. So every evening, a student does a project and gets feedback in small groups from industry experts who are actually solving those problems during the day. So we have a very close connection between people who are doing amazing at their job, training people who are just at the start of their career. And what that means is that let's say something has changed in the industry, a technology, a platform that didn't exist 12 months ago has come in today and made things much simpler. That's the aspect where these experts really help the students learn the new aspects very quickly. The second aspect here is that we run the placement process ourselves. So like I said, the goal of any higher education institute first and foremost is about jobs, which means that we get all the jobs that our students get. So 98%, 99% I would imagine of jobs that our students land, they land through us, which means that these recruiters have direct relationships with us. And so they keep sharing, pieces of information over what kind of skill they want to see in our programs, and that features into the, into the iterations that we do in our programs.
Right, absolutely. Now, in your assessment, what regularity measures are necessary to ensure that quality and credibility of offline education is there?
I think that's a great question. I think the first aspect is that the job content is changing very rapidly, and that pace of change is increasing. I think there has to be some regulation around allowing programs to iterate very, very quickly. I think that if you make, if you make an approval process where a different body is approving what kind of content a course can teach, then that by the time that approval comes in, things could have already changed rapidly. So I think the first piece around regulation is really about allowing online programs such as ourselves to keep making these iterations very, very quickly. The second aspect is that it's important to bring industry experts into education as much as possible. And I think that the recent national education policy has done a good job of really opening up the sector to practitioners to come in and teach, right? Earlier, you had to be a PhD to become a professor. Now, there is more openness that somebody with substantial experience does not need to go through that process in order to be teaching. I think that's a very important aspect. I think the third aspect is more openness about placement outcomes from online education platforms. So one of the things that we do, and as much as I know we're the only one in the industry, is publish each batch's placement report. Every batch, and we run a batch now every 5 weeks. So you can go to the Kraftshala platform, and on given day you can see placement reports of 16 batches that have graduated thus far, right? And I think that we do that not because regulators asked us to do, but because that's the kind of information any user should have about an educational institution before they choose one. And I think that if there is more openness either from the industry or from the regulatory point of view in getting that information out, it will help everyone in the ecosystem.
Right, absolutely. Thank you so much, Varun, for joining us on the broadcast, sharing your perspectives and your insights with us. Pioneering regenerative medicine.
We showed that the central nervous system can be repaired by cellular therapy.
Future of autism treatment.
This is cellular therapy, where we use good, healthy cells to repair damaged cells.
NewsX India A-List proudly recognizes Dr. Alok Sharma, Director of Neurogen Brain and Spine Institute, Navigator, Mumbai. Hello and welcome. You're watching NewsX A-List, where we bring to you some of the finest and reputed professionals in the country. Today, I'm being joined by Dr. Alok Sharma, who is a renowned and respected neurosurgeon, neuroscientist, and professor across the world in medicine with an extensive surgical expertise and experience in the areas of neurosurgery, neuroscience, and stem cells. In fact, in 1995, Dr. Alok Sharma held a place at the Karolinska Hospital in Stockholm, Sweden, where neural transplantation was done for the first time ever in the world. In fact, in 1998, Dr. Alok Sharma was placed at the University of Colorado Health Science Center in Denver, US, where the world's first randomized trial for cell transplantation was done for Parkinson's disease. So it's thank you so much for joining us. I'm very happy to have you over here. I'm going to start by asking you, what is new or different about your treatment that thousands of patients from over 100 countries from across the world have come to India, to your hospital, to take this treatment?
When we started working on this problem of neurological disabilities, we started from scratch, a blank slate. We did not go by what the West said. The Western thinking was, once the brain, spinal cord, once the nervous system is damaged, nothing can be done, that the central nervous system does not regenerate. This was the belief for over 100 years before. We questioned that. Then we started doing basic experimental work in the laboratory, working with animals, working with tissue, and we, over a 10-year period, 10 years of laboratory work, we showed that the central nervous system can be repaired by cellular therapy. And it is after that that we started our clinical work, and we've been doing this clinical work now for the last 15 years. We have treated over 14,000 patients from over 100 countries. But most important, all our work is published in peer-reviewed scientific journals. What does this mean? In the medical field, your work has credibility or respect only if it is peer-reviewed. That means somebody outside of you studies your data, validates its scientific and ethical content, and then it is published in journals. It's also a great matter of pride for us and me that the world's first scientific paper on the role of cellular therapy in autism was published from India. Well, it was published by us, by me and my team, but I always say it was published from India.
Right, absolutely. Indeed, it is a pride. It is a matter of pride for us and the country. Now, how safe is this treatment, and what is the scientific evidence that your treatment really works for autism children?
The most wonderful part of the treatment is its safety, okay? Because now I want to explain to you about safety. So what we are doing is cellular therapy. Up to now, prior to this, there were two kinds of medical treatment. Either you had drugs, you have tablet injections, etc., or you had surgery. You cut, you opened, you removed, and you sutured. So we had drugs and surgery. Now we have a new treatment that is actually different from both, although it has common factors. And this is cellular therapy, where we use good, healthy cells to repair damaged cells. So this is the field of regenerative medicine or cell or stem cell therapy. And now in this, there are two types. You can take cells from the same patient, from our own body. For example, in our bone marrow and in our fat, we have a lot of good cells and stem cells that can be used. So when you take cells from your own body and put it back into your own body, this is called autologous. And because they are your own cells, they are 100% safe. There is no side effect, there is no reaction, there can be no possible danger because you're using your own body cells. You're using good cells to repair the damaged cells. On the other hand, we also have cells that can be taken from a donor. They are called allogenic. Now, the government of India has divided this into what is called stem cell derived product. So there are companies that collect these cells, they manufacture them and sell them as a product and as cell stem cell procedures. And they are two very different things. So whereas allogenic cells or products may or may not have side effects, what we do is completely safe. And in over 14,000 patients, we've had almost no major irreversible or very severe side effects. There are always some little minor side effects which can be there, but all these are documented and explained to the patient, nothing very major or severe.
Right, so absolutely. Now the question that looms large is, if this treatment is so good, why is it not available all over the world?
Yeah, so this is very interesting. It's a very, very valid question. See, over all these years, developments in medicine came from the West. Newer drugs, newer surgical procedures, they all came from America, Europe, and England. Now, this is a treatment that is not evolved or developed in the West, but in the East. So India, Korea, Japan, and China, we are the 4 countries that are leading the work in this field. Okay, and because it is developed more in the East, all right, that is why, worldwide, the acceptance is a little slower. There's another reason why it is not developed so much. I know what I'm going to say may sound a little controversial, but the fact is that the entire medical industry is sort of from the back end controlled by a lot of what happens in the pharmaceutical industry. Now, our procedure, okay, is not, it's not a drug, it's not a product, it's not promoted by a company. So that is why the same backing that any new drug gets, because it gets backing from the pharma industry, our procedures don't have the same backing that other products get. So that is the other difference.
Right, so absolutely. Now, what are the views of the government of India on your work?
When the government had first come to power in 2014, at that time there is something called the presidential address, in which the priority of the government is listed. And in, I still remember, it's I think number 36 or something, where they focused on research. In that, they have mentioned 4-5 areas of research the government will focus on. Not medical research, overall research. And I remember things like nanotechnology, thorium research, brain research, and stem cells. So when Modi ji came to power, amongst the government's priorities, stem cells were mentioned. I am, of course, very fortunate and blessed that in a book that I have written on a condition called muscular dystrophy, the Honorable Prime Minister, Sri Narendra Modi ji, has actually written an introduction for a book of mine. So I have a book published on muscular dystrophy where I talk about stem cells, and Modi ji has actually written an introduction. Now this just shows his commitment, his involvement to the field.
Right, absolutely. Now, here's a fact that's going to make heads turn. You've also started the country's first dedicated anti-aging hospital. Is it true that the aging process can be slowed down and reversed? What treatments do you use to do so, and what are the results? This is something that, I mean, everyone has on their mind.
What are the treatments we use? We use very simple things. We use things like, for example, hyperbaric oxygen, that is oxygen given under pressure. We use ozone therapy. We use various forms of light and heat therapies. We use various supplements and vitamins. We have a gut cleansing process. We combine this modern medicine with traditional tools like yoga, like meditation, like naturopathy. So this the anti-aging that we do is a combination of modern medical treatments with our ancient Indian systems, our ancient systems of yoga, naturopathy and Ayurveda inbuilt, have everything that can stop the aging process.
What is the future of regenerative medicine for the wellness and health of all of us?
So regenerative medicine is the future, okay? And regenerative medicine is going to replace a lot of drugs. That's why, the pharma industry is looking at this in a very different way, because most of the drugs that we use always have side effects. But when you use your own body's healthy cells to replace and repair damage, it's a very safe, it's a very simple procedure. So there's already a lot of work to show that diabetes can be treated and reversed using cellular therapy. There's already a lot of work and a lot of publications to show, for example, that arthritis and joint problems, these can be reversed and treated with cellular therapies. There is a lot of work to show that damage to the liver and kidney can be corrected. In fact, a lot of transplant surgeons, I've heard some very well-to-do, very well-known transplant surgeons who in their lectures actually openly say that in the future, regenerative medicine or stem cell therapy will replace organ transplantation. So now the important thing is this cell therapy, it works in the earlier stages. Right now, our medicine is focused on when you have a disease, you go and try to fix it. The whole world is changing to what if you could prevent illness. So instead of waiting for somebody to fall ill and then spend a whole lot of time, money, energy, trouble fixing the problem,
right,
simple things could actually prevent the problem. So that is the shift, and that is going to be the role of regenerative medicine.
Right, absolutely. Dr. Alok Sharma, thank you so much for joining us on NewsX, sharing all those insights with us. Transforming personal finance.
Some expertise, experience. It should not be a malintent in terms of, just trying to get some valuation and make money in the short term, because a lot of startups do fail. 90-95% of startups do fail.
Training people globally.
You have to be able to do really very, very well in terms of your focus. You have to be dependable, you have to be responsible, you have to continuously keep learning in the job in order to succeed and make progress.
NewsX India A-List proudly recognizes Aswini Bajaj, CEO of Leverage Growth. Hello and welcome. You're watching NewsX India A-List, where we bring to you some of the finest and most reputed professionals in the country. Today, I am joined by Aswini Bajaj, the CEO of Leveraged Growth. Leveraged Growth is a niche finance-based business consultancy firm which provides a wide array of financial services and customized solutions to leading businesses. Mr. Bajaj has quite a few achievements to his name as well. His name has found mention in the international books of records for training the maximum number of people in personal finance. He bagged the India Education Award in 2019 and was also awarded as one of the best finance trainers in India in 2021. Aswini, thank you so much for joining us on NewsX.
My pleasure.
I want to begin by asking you, what was the defining moment that led you to choose teaching as a career? Could you share the inspiration behind this decision?
So basically, I was helping out my friends and all during college. And we used to have these seminars in college where one had to talk. So I remember one particular incident where it was an IT class, information technology, computers and all of that. And I was using an example from Digital Fortress, a book by Dan Brown, which is fiction, to connect something around encryption and talking about it. And I did a couple of batches in Kolkata, but once I moved to Delhi for my job and I was teaching over the weekends, and I saw people double my age enjoy the classes and the lectures and everything. And I was enjoying being more in the classroom than, taking weekend getaways. And it came naturally to me. That's when I decided to move back to Kolkata and start teaching full time.
All right. Ashwini, you've also achieved an impressive array of professional degrees. What fueled your passion for continuous learning and success in so many exams?
So one, to be very honest, Saraswati Ma has been very, very kind to me. And secondly, there's a lot of curiosity to know more. And I believe professional degrees and exams provide a lot of structure, sincerity and discipline, which otherwise probably a student would not be studying and, focusing so much. So I think that's something that keeps me on my toes and keep learning. Also because of my profession, since I'm into teaching and education. So it becomes very important for me to keep myself up to date.
So what would you say then? Are you a teacher or are you an entrepreneur?
I would say I'm a teacher at heart, but in practice I'm both. I think it's very important for people to choose entrepreneurship for the right and wrong reasons. So the right reasons could be you have a patent or a technology or some idea, experience in some field. And the wrong reasons could be I cannot work under a boss or just because I want to make a lot of money, because it does not work that way. So I think I just wanted to use my skill as a teacher and my experience with almost 130, 140 plus colleges that I've guest lectured, including a couple of dozen IIMs, IITs, in fact, a batch of IAS officers as well. So I wanted to use my experience as a teacher in order to build something, and that's how entrepreneurship also happened.
And how would you say in your experience that you view career options of startups, traditional jobs, and becoming an influencer? What would be your advice to young people today?
So when I talk about startups, again, as I mentioned, one has to have the right reason, whether you're providing value, you're solving a problem, you're going to be able to do something in a better way. There's some expertise, experience. It should not be a malintent in terms of, just trying to get some valuation and make money in the short term, because a lot of startups do fail. 95% of startups do fail. So that is something one needs to understand. With respect to jobs, again, the point is that one has to work like an entrepreneur in the job itself, where you have to be able to do really very, very well in terms of your focus. You have to be dependable, you have to be responsible, you have to continuously keep learning in the job in order to succeed and make progress. So you can take examples like Sundar Pichai and the CXOs across Fortune 500 and Nifty 50 companies, and you'd see they're making tons of money as well. But the point is that you need to be really growing, you need to think out the box, you need to think like an entrepreneur in a job. And when it comes to influencers, so I do not like to be categorized as an influencer. I'm a teacher. And the influencers, again, it's going to work. It's going to make a lot of money. It's going to grow the way we are looking at the trends in terms of social media. But at the same time, you have to, again, look at the probability. How many people make it to the Indian cricket team, for example, or to these actors and all that in Bollywood and all. But similarly, when you're looking at the number of people posting on YouTube, etc., the content and all, so the probability of you making it that big, you have to consider that. And second, also the point is that the barriers to entry are very, very low in terms of influencers. But for the audience, I would like to say, and for the students and professionals, be very careful in terms of what and whom you follow. So always look at the ethics, the experience, and the credibility of the person when you are taking any advice, especially when it comes to careers, finance, investments, etc.
Okay, and how has the process of making career decisions then changed over the last 10 years with the rise of artificial intelligence? What advice would you give to students today?
So I was just scribbling something. AI will replace you if your I is A. So AI is going to replace you if your intelligence is artificial. It makes even more sense today to be able to focus, to be able to go into the depth of things. So for example, when I'm teaching, I would draw the graphs myself instead of looking at a PPT, because you need to know how to do it. You need to derive formulas. For example, there's a formula in finance where we derive using an infinite GP series, valuation of a stock. Now, how do you derive is important, because when I'm applying it to a SaaS-based company, the way to look at it becomes different. So in order to outdo the AI or in order to be relevant, you have to have depth, you have to have a little broader perspective on things. So you have to read a variety of subjects, and you have to work on your social skills, your soft skills. For example, you cannot use an AI or a chat GPT or something while talking to somebody. They will not autocorrect you while you are speaking to someone. So you cannot just exactly, AI would not be able to replace you exactly that way.
Okay, Aswini, at the same time, with your experience training IIMs, IITs, IAS officers, giving TEDx talks and having 1 lakh YouTube subscribers at this point, how do you manage your online presence without getting carried away by social media? How do you really control your social media activity?
So firstly, all my social media apps are on tab and not on the phone. So even if I'm commuting, I'm either doing my work on WhatsApp or on calls, or looking at the trees on the way and kind of being a little at peace. So I do not have social media on my phone. Second is, you have to be able to use social media to your advantage. For example, I get access to people I would not have otherwise have access to. So I could be able to get their opinions. So on a day-to-day basis, whatever experiences they are gaining and they're sharing it on social media, I have access to those. But at the same time, I need to understand the business model of social media companies. For example, Google, where you are using it for free, but they are generating ad revenue. So ultimately, they would want you to spend money and they are consuming your time. And similarly, when you're looking at, let's say, influencers, so if you pay them an X amount of money, they would promote anything. So when it comes to actors, etc., it's still fine, because they're being paid and you know that they're being paid to promote something. But at times, influencers gain your trust and then they start promoting something. It becomes a conflict of interest. So you need to understand these things better. So read a book by Cal Newport, for example, Digital Minimalism, and watch this documentary on Netflix, Social Dilemma, and you'll understand what I'm saying.
Okay, Aswini, before we let you go and wrap up this conversation, one last question to you. What do you do for your personal investments? Do you invest in startups, and how do you manage your portfolio given your expertise in finance?
So firstly, there are a lot of influencers. For example, they'll give you these 80-20 principles and all. So you spend 80% and 20% is your savings. That might work for, let's say, your income bracket of, let's say, 8 to 10 lakh rupees. But the moment you move to a 20 or a 25 or a 30, you cannot follow the same thumb rule. So you have to start understanding and reading into it. For example, a book like Psychology of Money. Second is, you need to understand what is your personal situation and circumstances, and based on that, build it. You cannot be a part-time trader, because it will be as good as being a gambler. So when you see SEBI data, Stock Exchange Board of India, you'll see 90% of people losing money in FNO and all these in the trading space. And the number of people who are able to make money more than the FD rates is very, very minimal. So you have to be a professional trader or an investor, not a part-time one. But at the same time, with inflation, with expenses going up, with our retirement savings and all that is required, it is extremely important to have a long-term outlook and make investments. So for that, maybe a mix of mutual funds and ETFs would be a very good idea, a very good place to start with. So understanding the basics of finance, the basics of investment, the basics of asset allocation is more important than looking at individual equity investments. But given my profile is in finance, I own my house, so I would like to discard or set aside, this talk where you should not be owning a house and spend on experiences, because I'm living in my house 365 days a year. That is also an experience which I want to spend on. So everything cannot be put on an Excel sheet, because the markets also, when you talk about it, we talk about something called the market sentiment. So there is a sentiment, there is a behavioral aspect that is involved. So one has to look at it practically. I own my house. The way I look at gold and jewelry particularly is a little different. So over generations, if each generation is accumulating accumulating a small amount of gold, it acts as an extreme level of emergency cash. It's not something like your 6 months emergency cash that you resort to. But say, for example, earlier we did not have these many insurances and all. And if somebody does not have the money, they would be able to sell that gold that the family has inherited and accumulated over the generations, not just years, and use it in order to take care of marriages or education, etc. at home. So that is how I look at jewelry, not as an investment. But apart from house and jewelry, the liquid investment is going to be either your PF and your debt and FDs and all, and equity. I have a larger equity chunk, and direct equity is my investments because I have a very long-term horizon to look at. So based on that, you need to plan it out.
Okay, Aswini, thank you so much for joining us on NewsX India A-List and shedding some light on what is it that the youth of India perhaps can look at in terms of understanding what financial investment will mean in the coming years. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.